In this video, we will look at the zero product property and see how we can use this to determine horizontal intercepts of some polynomial functions. The zero product property says that if a times b is equal to 0, then either a equals 0 or b equals 0, where a and b are just real numbers. So essentially, if we have a product of numbers equal to 0, one of those numbers had to be equal to 0. There's no way to get a product of 0 without one of the terms that we're multiplying together being equal to 0. So the implications of this are kind of nice. So if we have something like x times y times z, and that's equal to 0, then one of the following things has to be true. Either x was equal to 0, or y was equal to 0, or z was equal to 0. One of those things had to be equal to 0. Another thing that's useful for this is if we have something like x plus a times x plus b, and we know that that product is equal to 0, then either x plus a was equal to 0, or x plus b was equal to 0. And then that in turn tells us that either x was equal to negative a, or x was equal to negative b. So there's a lot of nice implications of this property. Let's look at an example of actually using this. Consider the polynomial function f of x equals 3x squared minus 24x plus 45. If we do a little algebra, we can see that we can rewrite this function rule as 3 times x minus 5 times x minus 3. If we want to determine the horizontal intercepts of this function, we want to find values of x such that f of x is equal to 0. So that's what a horizontal intercept is. It's just a value of x that makes the output equal to 0. And if our output is equal to 0, then 3 times x minus 5 times x minus 3 has to be equal to 0. And if that's true, then either 3 is equal to 0, which isn't true, or x minus 5 is equal to 0, or x minus 3 is equal to 0. So this tells us that either x minus 5 equals 0, or x minus 3 equals 0. And if either of those things are true, then either x was equal to 5 in this first case. So in this first equation, if x minus 5 equals 0, then x was equal to 5, or x was equal to 3. So in the second case, if x minus 3 is equal to 0, then x had to be equal to 3. So what this tells us is if we have an output of 0, then either x was equal to 5 or x was equal to 3. So both of those two x values make an output of 0, and therefore our horizontal intercepts for this function are x equals 3 and x equals 5. We often write this just as a comma-separated list. We would just write x equals 3, comma 5 to mean x equals 3 or x equals 5. So in general, if we have a polynomial in factored form, we can use the zero product property to determine horizontal intercepts just by setting each factor equal to 0 and solving for x.